Great. Hello world, Podler team back at it again. We're doing a track 2 voicing section, and we are on the About Yourself theme. So we are building up the basic arc of the story, and we're going to continue from there. So introductions, I am Naiji Coach. With me I have Naiji, Ben, and Glenn. And Ben, we'll start off with you. Why don't you give us a little tour of your arc?
All right, sure. Yeah, I'll do that. Let's see here. All right, so last time we went over all the main topics. I've since broken up each of the topics into multiple beats per topic. So starting off with family, I have an overview. I have a beat on some of the family issues I had growing up. I'm not going to go like too far in detail, but you know, I have to mention certain things. Number 3, I have inspiring / positive experiences I've had with my family, so I'm not like dwelling on the negative aspects. And then next, I have the topic of friends. Number 4 is I talk about the experiences I had with my friends back in Arizona, and what that actually meant for me and my character. And then I move on to the friends I had in Minnesota, and then in Michigan. Then I talk about my Podler friends as well. So that covers beats 4, 5, and 6. Then I talk about school, and I break this up into 2 beats. I talk about the social aspect of school, what that was like for me, and then the academic aspect. So that covers beats 7 and 8. And then I get into gaming. I break this up into 3 beats. I talk about some of the RPG games I played, and then I talk about some of the random number generator kind of games I've played, and then I talk about different experiences I've had with hacking different games, and all of this ties into my personal character, what I personally enjoy, and how I was building my character up until now. And then next I talk about YouTube. I talk about how I got into YouTube. I talk about, and then I also talk about the benefits and like the inspiration I got from that experience of getting involved with watching YouTube videos. So that covers beats 12 and 13. And then I get into programming, and I break that up into 4 beats. I talk about my personal process, my talent with programming, some of the current projects I'm working on, some of the inspiration I get from programming, what that does for me, and then some future goals that are related to programming. And that covers beats 14, 15, 16, and 17. And then I talk about typology, and then so how I got into typology will be beat 18. And then I talk about how I got into Podler for beat 19. And then I talk about the challenges that I had with getting into Podler. And the first one I talk about is basically like having the responsibility of like reflecting on your actions and opinions, and constantly updating your opinions and code of ethics and so forth. Like when you're just a regular NPC, you don't really, I mean, you are supposed to do that, of course, everyone is, but you aren't really, your spirit, like, I didn't really have as high of a relationship with my spirits, and thus I didn't feel like I had a relationship where I was constantly pushing myself to a higher standard. I didn't have that kind of connection. So there's a lot of difficulty and responsibility that comes with that. And then another challenge I had was feeling and taking responsibility for becalment. Like, so you have all this heroic responsibility, so you're supposed to actually go and do something about it. So and make sure you're doing the most that you can. It's very easy to get kind of to a point where you sort of you don't really feel like going out and being a hero. I mean, there's so it's very easy to get becalmed just because of how difficult that is. And I feel like since I've become a member of Pod Lair, I've become much more aware of it. My spirits have been, it increases your connection to your spirits. So what that does is that makes you more aware of when, you're slacking in a certain area, or you really can improve yourself in a certain area, and you should be actively working on something, on a certain aspect of your character or something, in a literal fashion. And then I talk about the benefits that I had once I became a member of Pod Lair. I have a closer connection to my other, I'm more intelligent, and I'm more heroic. And that covers beats 22, 23, and 24.
Excellent. Perfect. I think it's a great place to start. I think then for next time, if you can see if you can tease it out to 36, and you'll actually technically, 34, because you automatically know there's going to be the kind of like mission statement and kind of log lines. You have the log line one and the mission statement one. So then plus those get to 36 for next time. Does that sound good?
Yeah, it sounds good. I feel like this is it's really helped to just
take a shape here.
breaking up the beats, like kind of really had a major impact. Because I knew I could do it. Like before, I sort of had like these sub bullet points, and I had a conceptual idea of like how I would break them up. But I feel like actually doing it helps as well, or is an important step, because it really maps out exactly how you're going to handle certain things, exactly how you're going to structure certain things.
That makes me think, Ben. It seems like you have a good kind of like template of like how you're breaking down the beats. Like you're talking about friends and stuff, right? And I think you mentioned a whole bunch of other stuff too. I was wondering if you could kind of like maybe share some of like send me if you could send a file or something, it could help me understand my own beats a little bit better too. I kind of think, because I don't know, I'm thinking like you have something good already there with you, and so I want to like use that and kind of make up my own beats by kind of like comparing what you have there. Sort of like
oh, sure thing. Yeah,
like
I can send you this template if you want.
Sure, that'd be helpful, because it makes sense. Like you're talking about it made me think about like, oh yeah, I have friends too, like I can probably talk about friends that I had back when I was going to different elementary school and then high school, and then when I moved to different areas, and then I made different friends there, and then like the experiences that I had, and it kind of all, is just like good to want to like get out there, because it's all me, right? I mean, like it's all like us.
Well,
like
as long as you are not just following it because it's a logical template, because it does have logic to it, and that's a good job there, Ben. But the most important thing, which is what Ben achieved for himself in his way, and it may work for you, Glenn, or it may not, which is this.
Okay.
Each beat is supposed to be something that he would feel moved. He's making a new friend. Things are going well, and you're sharing about yourself, and you want the person to know about you. You're trying to convey that. So if you feel you can do that, because one thing Ben was sure to mention is that I think you did too, but I just make sure this is the most important aspect, is that you're not kind of like giving a biography. It's very important. You're giving the story of you rather than the biography of you. Does that make sense?
That's very much the case. It's sort of like, I'm not just like, disseminating a whole bunch of facts and details that have no real importance. They actually are related to like, like I remember the moments that I've had in my life for a specific reason, right? Like they taught me something important, those particular moments, and then that kind of shaped me into who I am now. And also at the same time, it shows who I was then at the same time as well. Like I was this kind of a person, and then I came across this person or this idea. The person represents a kind of an idea essentially, and then that idea I had to kind of like wrestle with, or I had to like, or I immediately took it on, or whatever the case might be, and then that says something about like, me and how it is that I think, and like you can get to know that aspect of me by me, explaining myself, and how it is that I work, and the choices that I've made, and that sort of thing. and the circumstances that I found myself in. It all says something about like me and like who I am and what I, you know, like what kind of a person I am essentially. So yeah, I mean, like it's instead of having absolutely nothing there at all, which is sort of like, well, that's just a big question mark. Well, now I'm providing actual stuff that you can look at and be like, oh, so this is actually what this is here. You know, so it's exciting. It's also interesting to want to do that because I feel like, yeah, that would be really good for other people to know about me because
Sure.
then they can possibly, I don't know, help me on my journey if they would like to, or it could just be like, oh, that's just Glenn. You know, like knowing that the person knows you for who you are, it kind of makes you feel good.
Yeah,
like,
it does. It really does.
Yeah.
For sure.
Because it's like if they ever come across anything in their life and they think of me, they're going to be thinking of me for a specific reason because like, oh yeah, it was related to this and that. And then, I don't know, like.
And those are things that are authentically important to you.
Right. And so it could be, yeah, it just like, it opens the door essentially instead of having big question mark, you know, like who is Glenn? What does this person do? Who's Ben? Who's Mitchell? Who's any of us? So it's kind of important to kind of like, you know, talk about these things so that people kind of understand, have you constellated in their worldview a little bit, you know?
Definitely. And then that's on the, say, objective side. On the subjective side, there's also, it's very empowering.
Yeah.
Because you're trained, you know, we tend to think a lot this way as Naiji especially, but all humans come with hardwiring and in culture are trained on learning about a chosen one of a given story's heroic arc. And we're built with that technology. We have this our peak pathway, and to be able to speak it without sounding weird in words that make sense to you, but you basically plot out. So Glenn was doing this, and he learned this. And then Glenn was doing this, and that led him here. And then he said, I'm going to go here now. And you kind of plot out this heroic trajectory. And it is, you know, I mean, definitely if you're here, and you are, and you've been doing this for years, and you have, and you're planning to continue to be a seeker for years to come, that's a special human. Definitely worthy to give like a, you know what I mean, origin story to.
Yeah, there's like, because like, I feel like everything, I mean, like, there's a reason that you got here today, right? And there's a story that led you up to that point. You know, obviously, I'm sure there's some like, you know, talents that you have that are more genetic, but at the, you know, but also you have this like, you know, big story that led you here today, and I think it's, you know, it's worthy and important to talk about.
For sure. And so,
yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
Definitely, it's just like I think we kind of like reached up to this point now, which is like a good place to have. Like first, we were talking about just ideas, like things you find interesting that are important to you, and now it's kind of turning into something more, which is like you're kind of like the story of you, right?
Yeah.
And then what that
you're
is.
basically being a bardic representative for yourself, and a bard needs to have the story of its patron. That's what bards originally were hired for a lot of things. Is they were there to commemorate and to explain to people big, important, interesting stories and ideas. And so it's great to be able to do that for oneself. And as you learn to do it for yourself, it makes you better in the process in general as far as understanding the world. It actually helps your emoji reading to be able to look at the beautiful story of it. But then also, it helps you other people to tell their story. That's one thing that is a power that you have in general, but doing this practice will improve it, is later on for other people, taking things they tell you and constellating the heroic things they do, the kind of arcs they're on, different adventures that they have. And they go, I never thought of it like that, but it's true. You're the chosen one in your story. You're doing these various things. You're learning these lessons. You're having these challenges. Some you overcome, some not yet, but hopefully in the future. You're like, ooh, yeah, it's an interesting story. My life is an interesting story. That's a great gift to give to yourself. That's what we're doing right now. Your life is an interesting, important story. But then you can give the gift to others. You know what I mean? If you care to share your headspace with their life.
And I think, yeah, of course it is. It's especially interesting, I think, given that our stories kind of like interweaved with yours, Coach, and that now we're all a part of this, you know, thing, this whole journey, this whole.
It's exciting.
It's kind of like, you know, like that's cool, right? I mean, that's kind of like.
Yeah.
The story, like everyone has a story, and they all kind of like meet up with other people's stories, and then there's a reason for why that happens, why that occurs. Why does the two marbles happen to fall into the same hole. You know, like why did that happen? So
yeah, it's
kinda cool.
it's epic, and it really helps to be able to conceptualize and to convey that way of looking at your life and life in general.
Yeah. So anyways, you guys were talking about, like, I think Ben's beats and stuff, like.
Okay, so that's kind of what you would, your arc. Glenn gets a good conversation on it, some good understanding, and Ben's going to give you a template to work with there. So I guess going back to you, Ben, then the next step, you probably need to be out by yourself for this, to drift, but is to come up with that 36 beat outline. But for here, while we're in person, where it works better for conversing with Glenn.
Yeah, it's good to specialize towards like where we're stronger. Like right here, we're stronger towards like talking about it. And
yes, exactly.
So
I think what might be good is if you could walk us through your outline again, and if you need to take a moment to jot things as you're going, please take that time because it'll help expand your outline. What I want you to do now, and you can take a little time for each one to think about if you need to, is basically say what it is you want that beat to get across. That's kind of like its purpose. You know what I mean?
okay.
Basically, kind of because you think of these beats like you think of in theater scenes, and each scene needs to have a purpose. There should be no fluff scenes. There should be no, theater and drama is considered to be like real life, except all the boring stuff removed. It's the same kind of thing. Every scene needs to have a reason for its existence.
Yeah, there shouldn't be anything that's unnecessary.
Exactly. And that necessity gives it its initial charge. The scene will be charged because it has a reason to be there. It's not killing time.
There's a point to it.
Exactly. So then once you realize what that purpose is, then you start with usually intro, exit, and the drop. And that's why I said, most of my paragraphs, you get the class like 3 sentences up to like 5 sentences. So you can go up to 5. More than that's getting a little chunky. But the basic 3 is once you realize this is what I want to do, you make a little quick arc of 3 things, which is how do you start that conversation? What do you need to drop? How do you close it? Do you mean like a 1, 2, 3? So let's go through slow. We don't have to get it all done today. Your head may get tired because it's kind of upper level creative thinking. But I think it does lend itself to conversating with friends. You ready? So
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah, so I'll just go through it, but sort of try to address, what the beat is trying to get across ultimately. All right.
I'm gonna probably type some stuff out too as you talk.
All right, cool. Sounds good. So the first topic, family, and then the first beat I have is an overview, and I think the purpose of that beat is to just get a sense of what my family was like growing up and what my experiences were like. Just give a sense of that, while giving necessary details for the next couple beats about various members. So not really going too far into detail, but just giving enough so they have like an understanding.
I got can I offer something here? Okay, so
Sure.
that's I got a solid base, but for the purpose of it being your choreography, it needs to have a bit more of you in it, and I can think of an easy way to do that. So going with what you already did, everything just said is solid, but you'll want to put in how those basic things reflect on you.
Sure.
So it can be something as simple as, this basic details, and then you kind of say, and that's such and such a kind of life. That's an unusual one. That's a common one. That was a tumultuous one. It was an average one. It was mixed and matched one. Whatever, kind of like say what that made for you, and then you, like how did you fit into that?
All right.
Does that make sense?
Okay, I think that sounds good. I think what I might do then is have that kind of, yeah, because I'm going to get into that more in the next couple beats.
Can I say something real quick, just to make sure, I think it might help. I think you've heard this technique I'm going to say to you a lot in movies you've seen, in books and comics and things like that. And it relates to this first beat you're doing, which is, I grew up in Minnesota and such. It was the Rust Belt. My mom did such and such. My dad did such and such. I had a dog when I was young, but it died and such, right? And then almost always says the following two things. Does that make sense? Does that make that part sounds a lot like what you were saying, right?
Yeah, give or take. I mean,
give or take, right? But it's basic descriptive information, right?
Yeah.
So when I say this, I think you're no, like, oh yeah, they always do that usually. So you go such and such, the Rust Belt this, my mom did that, dad did this, dog did such and such. It was a such and such kind of life, if you consider it. They'll kind of give like that made for this kind of.
Yeah, I think in one sentence I can actually sort of say what it was like overall, probably one or two sentences, and then.
And then, critically, that's the second point. I kind of just went with the flow because I didn't know what to do, or I always thought something was off or there was something bigger going on, even though I had a comfortable life. So usually it's like descriptive, which is kind of this kind of life. And for me, I reacted to or I related to that like this. Does that structure sound familiar?
Yeah, it does sound vaguely familiar. A lot of stories, I think, often start that way. I think that's great. I'm gonna write some of that down.
I got a lot of thoughts about the whole friends, the families, but family members. So I mean, each family member could literally have its own beat and like several points on it, and then there's relatives, and then friends, even acquaintances, even just people that I met in passing, and just kind of like interesting things. Because there's some people that I've had like really lengthy conversations on the bus, and I never saw them ever again. And those kind of relationships, they actually stuck with me for some reason. It just like because the authenticity of being able to dialogue with that person. Kind of, they told me about their story. It was just kind of like really odd, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, that's like really awesome stuff too. And it's like, I really got along with them. I feel like I would like to have, maybe exchange numbers and be able to like keep in touch. But it's like, maybe it's best to just, they went on and go and do their thing. And
still, it was an important or pivotal moment for you in a way.
Yeah. Maybe it was like a really major thing because you got something really significant from it. Or maybe it was just sort of like, I didn't know that relationships could be like that, or like you can have a relationship like that.
Exactly. So right there, those kind of ahas and growths, you would kind of attach them in the descriptiveness of the subject beats.
Yeah, and it also felt like I was able to impart good like wisdom to the other person, and they were able to do so for me as well. And it kind of felt like we were both making the world a better place by doing something like this. Engaging, it's kind of like crazy, right? But it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like, just like two people that got together, or maybe even more than that, and they just kind of like had a moment, and then that's going to stick with them, and then that idea is going to then spread to other people, and then that's going to eventually change the world in some kind of a way. It's kind of
you should jot some of this down. These are obviously things are important to you, and they're good thoughts, and you could this is something I do sometimes. I didn't mention. You sometimes keep like a side list. I mentioned the arc. I mentioned the theme list, and then the theme list have bullet points. There's like a fourth thing, which is like a side paper you should keep of whenever you go off, like you just did there, Glenn. Have a little rant, got some nice nuggets dropping, but you don't know where they're going to go, but they're good. Just jot them as fragments on the side. All artists do this. And then as you develop the script more, the arc more, you can like go, oh, I'm going to fit that, and you can start slipping in these good lines. Does that make sense?
I know, it's kind of, when I really start thinking about it, it's like, well, there's so many, I can feel them like all just, juggling in there. It's like,
and so exactly. So if you feel that coming, let that happen. Go off on some rants. You can do it here. You can do it in your own time, and just jot down the good ideas without worrying about how they're going to go into the structure yet. Just get a nice list of things that you think are neat, And then they can be whatever. Maybe they're a beat in their own. Maybe they're like one sentence, they're sentence fragment. They're just a cool turn of phrase, whatever they are, but you kind of just collect them like that.
All right, cool. So I should move on to the next beat then?
Yes, and the reason I made a thing of this, Ben, is that now that you've made that connection and you felt that connection the first beat, it'll be easier now to just continue to make a note of doing that on each successive beat.
Yeah. So for the next one, I talk about like issues I had with my family growing up. I'm not sure. Maybe I could reverse the order and talk about positive experiences first. But I don't really want to end on negative, so I figured now would probably be a good place to have that. But yeah, so I had a few of my family members, it runs my family, is mental health issues and things like that. I've had multiple family members struggle with like alcohol and things like that, and that had a big impact on me as a child. Growing up, it caused me to sort of, I think, become a bit more disconnected from them than I otherwise would have, and from the world in general. I was kind of, disconnected in general, I would say, as a kid. I was in my own world, but I think that played a significant role in that. And I think, honestly, I could probably just say that for my beat, what I just said right there. But, because I don't want to go like too far in detail, but I do want to get that message across. So.
Yeah, I think you don't have to go in detail, but you can still come across strong.
Yeah, because it is like really like an important thing that happened to me. So I feel like it's like something that has to be talked about, at least in some way. So.
Can I throw something out? And if you don't want to use this, fine. I thought I may have heard something, and let me know. Because you mentioned that you were in your own world, and then that you were kind of detached a bit more because of some of the issues. Mm-hmm. It almost sounds like it could work where in the first beat where you talk about just like general, right? You mm-hmm. said the first beat.
Yeah.
Maybe your reaction is you just talk about how you were always someone who was in your head a lot or had a lot of imagination or something, and that kind of sets it. And then maybe you increase that in the second beat where you then say, besides that, there was me detaching from the world. So basically you were inclined to be in your head anyway, but then the second beat, that inclination was accentuated by you pulling away from the issues. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, I think I think that's a pretty good description. In my head a lot, detached, and then and then I guess like so the first beat might be like I might talk. Yeah, I was more like in my head a lot. Imaginative is probably a better word, and then I can talk about how I became more detached, possibly because of these family issues. And there's probably other reasons that I became more detached, but this is definitely one of them.
Maybe more.
But yeah, I think that would be a great transition.
Yeah, and you say you can tease out that maybe there's more things when you actually write it, but for right now, it has a nice flow. So
yeah, I agree. I think that's a good transition. Would inspiring positive experiences. So I think the things that stand out to me the most, especially when I was really young, is I would very commonly in the winter, when I was back in Arizona, like Phoenix, I would drive up north with my family. We'd go on ski trips, and I had a lot of really good, positive, shiny baby like experiences back then. And I felt like I really just had a sense of just like bliss and happiness with those experiences. Like those are some of the more like memorable. Like when I get like really nostalgic about like my family and childhood, like that's like always something that stands out to me. So that would be one example. And there's probably some others I can think of too.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, it sounds like you're saying that you started naturally being imaginative in your head more than other people. This was accentuated by some issue factors, and then but you did engage with the world sometimes, and when you did, it could be very intense and very enjoyable. Is that a?
Yeah, I could phrase it that way. Yeah.
Not saying to phrase it that way.
Because I think the purpose of this beat is it sort of doesn't. Because I don't want to represent my experiences, with my family in in too much of a negative light, because I feel like I don't want to misrepresent that, But I also want to connect it to me, and I feel like that definitely. It's hard talking about early childhood, finding the connection to where you are now. But I feel like that gave me a lot of happiness and positive energy as a kid. So skiing was something that was very memorable for me. But yeah, I think the activity, and then I could also use that as an opportunity to just give an example of some of the things that were more positive about my experiences.
Gotcha.
With my family.
So I'm trying to think as making a character. So would you say that you are bonded strongly to your family? Is that or how would you?
Sort of in different ways I am.
Okay.
It's hard to say overall, because I don't really have a strong sense of what this is like typically for other people. I feel like I'm pretty strongly bonded. I definitely at that point I was obviously really strongly bonded, but that's because I think I was younger and so forth. But I have had really strong bonds with my family, I think is how I would phrase it. And I still currently do.
I think it's good information. I am still wondering how it relates to you, because what I've heard so far sounds a bit like it's a softening beat of the earlier beat, which did relate to you. There were some issues. You became more detached. That's a very the purpose of that and how it relates to you is very clear. In this beat so far, it sounds like you're saying there were also good experiences. And so that's why I try to say, so you're counterpointing being detached in general to being attached in some way. I was trying to figure out how that related to you.
I think that relates to me. I mean, it's
okay.
Positive. It had a positive impact on me when I was really young. I mean, that has to be relevant, right?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So that's what it is.
Unless I'm wrong about that, but
no. That helps you. See right there. No, but see what you gave me. You probably already said it, but with the way you said it right then was assertive and clear. Positive impact. So basically saying so that there was positive impact. So
and then you can perhaps flesh it out more as you describe it. Like, what was it that happened? What are the memories of so and such interactions that you had that created that positive feeling? Because obviously there's something there, right? So that's
and I think you communicated to a large degree, Ben, when you're talking about the nostalgia and the good feelings and things like that. But that's why when you heard me saying the bonding or this and that, I was trying to find out what kind was the power.
I think I should definitely phrase it from that kind of impact it had on me, not just the bonding itself. I agree.
think going deeper on it would have really helped you to understand exactly what it was.
And I'm not sure how much deeper I can really go. It's really difficult because this is I was 7 years old, But I can definitely do my best in that regard.
Yeah, and it's by deeper. For me, what I was thinking was, and maybe it's what Glenn was saying, but for myself, what I was saying is simply that there is a relevant to your character. Authentic drop. It doesn't have to get super deep or specific or things like that. But right now, to me, it's clear. So you have the first beat, you have this life that's got some details to it, and as a part of that, you just were imaginative and in your head. That was just something that was about you. Then it was increased to some extent by some certain situational factors. And then third beat, but there was positive impact. There were things that you had with your family gave you positive impact.
Exactly. And I think that's really what I want to communicate there.
Yeah,
that's really why it's there.
What I was trying to get across was not necessarily that you have to go into detail in explaining it to another person. What I'm trying to get at is you should understand your own personal experiences yourself and understand what kind of a impact, why were they important to you in the first place? Really
I think I'm explained that. Although I'm
Yeah.
like, are you asking?
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to like, like.
I think Glenn was probably referring to where we were before you and I kind of like went back and forth and cleared everything up. I think it's all cleared up now.
Yeah.
All right.
And I did actually say that too. I said like
Yeah.
I spoke in that it had a really positive shiny baby kind of impact on me and really gave me a lot of positive energy. And I think what you said too, Coach, also makes sense about like it giving me a more positive connection to the world, with those experiences.
Yeah, I think I might.
And I said, Ben, you did, just to be clear, you did communicate those things, and so part of that is just me hearing and understanding.
Yeah, I think that's definitely because I did say a lot of stuff too that wasn't necessarily.
So kind of like imagine like you're like writing the story as a script, and I'm like a script helper for you. And one thing, and even though I'm like a big fan, is it may sometimes say like, what is it you're trying to say with that scene? Like, you know what I mean? I'm into the scene, I'm into the character, I'm into the story. I'm just trying to make sure I'm not missing.
And oftentimes it's about like cutting certain things out and then like emphasizing certain points as being like the message, the takeaway message from what you're saying.
Right, yeah. The moral of the story, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And it's moral relevance to the in this case the key chosen one character, Ben. So beat 4, what do you have there?
I think I may have
so
zoned out on some of the earlier points that you're making, so that's why I was not able to understand exactly. But yeah, anyways, beat 4.
Yeah, we were finding back pretty quick, so I think it's understandable.
We're all good. All right. So this theme of like positive like impact on my character is going to happen a lot as I'm talking about like the various friends I've had. So the first group of friends, I'll just give you some detailed information. I'm not going to like necessarily go on and on about this. I'll probably be able to sum this up better when I actually do the beat. But like back in Arizona, I had, I had 2 friends that really stood out to me. We're like a really close group of 3 friends. And I was like 7, maybe 8 years old when I was friends with them. And they were the first, really close friends that I really had. And I felt, I developed a strong sense of bonding from that point. And I felt like that was helpful to my character because it gave me a strong sense of what it was like to have close friendships. And that helped me out later in life when I developed other connections and I met other people and I had other positive experiences. So I'm trying to think. I'm not sure how else I can sort of drop like, I mean, I know that was definitely positive for me as far as like, it gave me a lot of, it helped a lot with my imagination because we oftentimes we played various games and we hung out together. So it gave me a lot of energy and imagination and also bonding that I could apply later in life. So I feel like those are like the main benefits I got.
So I'm not telling you what to say. I'm actually asking if I understood this correctly because it's kind of like what I thought I might have heard.
Sure thing.
So with your family, the positive experiences sound like that was maybe like a general warmth and support and trust and safety kind of thing. And then I think it sounds like you're saying that with these friends, perhaps it was a bit more of people who have similar interests to you and how you conduct yourself kind of like a comrade or a friend and like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly. People like I would hang out because of like the things we were into and the things we like to do.
And then how to conduct yourself well in that instance, and that you wanted to. You sound like you wanted to because you're like, ooh, I want to be good at this. I want to be a good friend.
Yeah.
I like this Ben guy. See where he's going.
It's funny because my character was like so much different back then. Like when I was like 7 or 8 years old, I was sort of like I was like really energetic, you know what I mean? I like so much like, I don't know. I was so much like less reserved than I am now. I don't know. It's fun to think about. So those were the kind of experiences I had.
That little thing you said, that was like a little off thing. That might mean something.
It was, but yeah, I can make a beat out of that. Yeah, I should drop that down. Or
yeah, so let's say maybe it's a beat, maybe it's a fragment. I was telling Glenn, I would just keep like another sheet to just catch stuff that you don't know what it's going to be, or if you're going to use it, but you're like, that might be something.
Yeah. Yeah, I became a lot more. I mean, this is you know off topic. Well, not really off topic, but I became a lot more you know sort of reserved once I moved to Minnesota, and I think that was and I think that was sort of building already. Right, there's something in me that was sort of like transitioning over, but it really happened after that move because you know I really wasn't used to like leaving you know leaving friends I was close to and also just like changing environments, like meeting different people and changing environments that had really had a big impact on me. And then I had to move again later in life, and that was also.
Yeah, this is good because you kind of started a theme of you're in your head, you're imaginative. Maybe as a part of that, you can also mention that because it usually goes together. You're also kind of like a watcher.
Yeah,
really.
Definitely.
And so whenever you move and have to change friends and location, you kind of do a reboot, and so that's kind of like a theme you're saying. So maybe that's that. You kind of just tossed it off here, but it kind of sounds like that's what you wanted to convey to us. So that's good to know.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, those could be potential beats for sure. Or you know, or add to potential beats, or you know, they can definitely have a place somewhere.
Yeah, they could be beats, or they could be what I actually thought I heard, but maybe they're beats or something else. It almost sounded like you were kind of like pointing, you know, the central thing of like how it relates to Ben's growth and story. It kind of like seemed like you did that for a few beats. You're basically saying, you know what I mean, like, you know, you got more detached. You started in your head, then you got more attached because of like some issues, but there was attachment.
Yeah. Although that isn't actually chronologically correct, because the issues I had with my family were actually more when I was in Minnesota, like when I was like 11 or 12 or something.
Okay, is that but
still, it is definitely relevant to that because that's also the time. That's also the time when I was becoming more detached. So.
Yeah, because that's kind of what I'd be most interested in myself, and knowing is sort of like, you know, how did your new friendships go? Mm-hmm. Was it harder to start them and things like that? And also, were your interests with them different or the same once you found new friends?
Yeah. So in Nextbee, I talk about I moved to Minnesota, and it was actually really hard to make friends for the first few years. You know, for the first couple of years, like I had a couple of friends who were sort of close-ish, but then I got like really close friends. Like I think it was, let's see, it was like I think fourth grade, although I might be wrong, like fourth grade-ish. I developed a really close group of friends again. So I was like the second, like really, you know, tight buddies. And these were the friends I got involved with I did a lot of like gaming with these friends, like more so than my last. Like I did some gaming with my previous group of friends, but we were kind of younger, so you know we spent more time, I think, like or a decent amount of time like on the playground stuff. With these friends, it was more heavily centered around gaming. So that was the primary thing that we were into. And this was also the group of friends that I was involved with when I played RuneScape. That's when I started getting into that. I started becoming like really addicted to that and stuff. So with this group of friends, I felt like I have a lot of experiences just like geeking out on video games, like talking about lunch, about different things we're doing, or around this time, my virtual village was getting a lot larger. We were talking about more things related to pop culture and games and other stuff. So I felt like my conversations were more like just really, really like invigorated with a lot of like references to jokes people were talking about and different and lots of media. There's a lot more media involved because of our interest in gaming and other references.
That's really good.
So I felt like that gave me a really strong connection it gave me a really strong connection to media and also just again another group of friends that gave me a lot of energy and charismatic enthusiasm that I otherwise wouldn't have, and it really got me into and invigorated into the games I was playing. I would actually like go and like hang out, with different friends, to play games. So that gave me a lot of energy and sort of helped me escape from the world in various ways, but also get a lot of benefits from what I was playing and things we were doing.
Is that and then which beat number is that?
This would be beat number 5.
Gotcha. 6.
And then 6, when I was just before 8th grade, I moved to Michigan. I was like, at this point, I was like really, like I had so much trouble moving to Michigan because like the first move, it's like you don't know what to expect, right? Like the first time you move like from one location to another, it's just like, I mean, it's kind of scary, but you just don't know what to expect. Second time, it's like, oh, I have to do this again.
I know.
It's like it was so hard for me to to meet people, that I just like getting myself to want to do it. It was a really like emotional experience. I was like, but I did end up moving just before 8th grade, and I was for a few years I just like I hardly talked to like anybody. Like I hardly had like any friends or anything. I mean, like there were people I talked to, like I developed like this habit of getting like, I think I actually became better at having, casual conversations with people, but I became worse at developing like deep friendships with people.
That's good.
Because
I was jotting down just in case you want. Are you jotting some of the things that you are saying? You're dropping a lot of good stuff here.
Yeah.
It just feels like this entire world just opened up, right?
So is Michigan more of that beat? Is that more of a story of not having friendships?
Yeah, I would say, especially for like the first few years. Yeah. I was gonna say something. Yeah. So, and then I did develop like another group of friends that were pretty close. They weren't like as close as the ones I've had in the past, but that was when I did debate. I met some people there. I became decent friends with. They weren't like my tightest buddies, but we did this like debate activity, and we were that was the thing we did, and we became friends because of that. And I have a lot of good experiences going to debate tournaments and doing fun things there and having good experiences. And I think this kind of branches off into debate, but it is still related to friendships, right? It's still friendship. What that gave me and the experiences I had is a lot more of a definitely when it comes to like culture and politics, like that like really like increased my knowledge of politics and what was going on in the world. Because there was the debate activity itself, but then the friends that I had, I learned a lot of things from them about various ongoings of the world that I otherwise wouldn't have been paying attention to. And I think that actually is a really important thing to talk about because it connects to pod layer, because pod layer, like once we get into that, that leads into like the implications of pod layer and why it's important and so forth, you know, what it can form on when it comes to the world. So debate, I may actually want to like give maybe its own beat or something.
Oh, it's so funny. I was just going to suggest that. I was just going to suggest
yeah,
that.
because it seems like that's really like the takeaway comes from like, because like the friends I had when I was doing debate, okay, I could talk about that, but why not just like make, you know, a beat for that?
And it sounds also like to me that beat was getting a bit full because you already had the thing of like you had to move again that threw you. You had several years of not being with friends. You got better at having casual conversations, but not deep conversations. But you did eventually find some friends that you got into some activities such as debating. Right there, that's a nice 4-sentence beat. And then I think debate would then, that goes right into debate, and then debate.
Then I went on this whole spiel. Yeah, I think that'd be great. I could probably, I think I'll write down to add this. And it's funny because like the next topic I talk about is school, so maybe I can put it under school or something because it's really closely related to that. Because it is it is like an extracurricular activity. So maybe under like social aspect, or maybe I could just add another beat to like the school topic and talk about debate. So yeah, I think I should definitely do that.
Yeah, in fact, you can actually mention school as part of debate, and then that segues you to school.
Oh yeah, I definitely could do it that way too.
Yeah, so Michigan Friends, the general thing, takes you debate. Debate takes you to school. That's smooth.
Yeah.
One other thing, you don't have to use this, but I thought I'd mention it because it's come up several times. So I think it might be something that would be good for you. Is after those friends that you did the gaming with, you talked a lot about how you learned to talk better, you geeked out, you had bonds, yada yada yada, and so that's a rich beat as it is. Mm-hmm. I think you could probably do a beat after that if you wanted to on RuneScape and why RuneScape was so fascinating to you, why it captured your imagination, what you learned from it. You know what I mean? Because also,
I think I could. Also, that'd be kind of interesting.
Just the concept of Ben geeks out. You haven't really mentioned that yet. That might be a good place to kind of mention Ben will geek out sometimes. For example, RuneScape.
Yeah, like the 153 days, I think. Yeah.
That deserves its own beat.
Yeah, and later on I do talk about gaming, but like I could just like give that its own beat right there, and then maybe I can talk about.
It seems to hold the way you present it, and it comes up naturally for you. It seems to hold a special place in your heart. So yeah,
it seems like it can like stand on its own. But later I can still talk about like sort of higher level trends, but then I can still have a beat like on that one game I played, at that time,
Sure.
So.
Yeah, and I think it will because all of us like to geek out sometimes. Having a beat on just one game, I think it would be actually kind of good of like, let me give you just an example of how I can get into stuff.
That's great. Yeah.
Okay, so then we added 2 beats already, Runestone and debate. This is good, and they fit naturally with the way you were talking.
RuneScape.
Yeah, that's great, and we're only
sorry,
like.
Did I say wrong?
Runestone.
I was saying RuneScape.
They do have.
Is that wrong? RuneScape?
Yeah, they do have runestones. And those are basically what you use to cast magic. I'm sure you're familiar with, but yeah, it's called RuneScape. But it's fine. It's easy to.
No. I sorry. What did I say?
Yeah, you said runestone.
It's not a big deal,
briefly.
Coach.
It's totally fine. Like
I still don't get what's the actual name of the game? What did I say?
I think
you said
Runestone.
No, I think.
And the game is RuneScape.
Okay, my bad. RuneScape, gotcha.
So yeah, I think you did at first you said RuneScape, but then you said Runestone.
Oh
briefly.
yeah, I switched up.
Yeah, it seemed like really. It was just a yeah. So
no, cool.
Yeah, it was more like pointing it out to be like, oh, that's like a funny little thing because like it wasn't meant to be like anything more than that. Just.
Oh no, that's all good. I actually just didn't know I had done that, so now I took a moment to like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
All right, so you said this was going to segue you into some possible school beats.
Yep, it segues into school. The first part I talk about the social aspect. And then I actually talk about how I was, I was rather quiet growing up. Particularly, well, I guess that's kind of an oversimplification, because I did talk about how I was more sociable and energetic earlier on, and then I became less so as time went on. So I would probably say that. And then I described that it was especially challenging, like especially when I didn't have a close group of friends. Like there were certain times where I didn't. It was really hard to find people to sit with at lunch, because that's kind of an encounter you usually people would usually sit with their their closest friends or the people they knew the best, right? And I didn't really have people I knew like really well, so that was always like a really big challenge for me. And like the social anxiety of like there's like people like everywhere, and it's chaotic.
It's good.
Lunchrooms are like packed full of people. So I could talk about here, like I had a lot of nervous energy, so it was hard for me to deal with all the people that were everywhere.
That's really good. Yeah, because you've already kind of covered some earlier beats that you were not having a lot of friends during a period or whatever. But this is different. You're actually talking, because you can be lonely by yourself, but it's different to be alone in a group of people. So there's, you don't have a pack, you don't have a tribe, you don't have a table set for you, and all these people are talking and moving. That's good.
Yep.
So that was
definitely.
So that beat's going to kind of like be the social of school, but the kind of takeaway will be your kind of social awkwardness / anxiety with the situation.
Yeah, I would say so. Yep. And then, and yeah, I also had a lot of experiences, like especially when I didn't have like a lot of close friends, with just like watching people. So like when I wasn't, I my whole life I've been watching people, but when I wasn't, I didn't have like people I was really close with, I would spend more time doing that. I think, which gave me a sort of a closer connection to people than I otherwise would have had if I wasn't doing that.
So you're saying that during that period of the school social stuff where you had increased awkwardness and anxiety, but your people watching also simultaneously went up, and that did give you a kind of bond. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the time. I think.
Good.
A lot of the time that I didn't actually have a lot of friends. I was watching, and that gave me a lot of, it gave me a deeper understanding of people than I would have had if I wasn't doing that, for sure.
You should jot some of the stuff down.
Yeah, definitely, I should jot that down.
Some of the beats you're doing, talk about, you kind of feel them, they're kind of starting to take a little bit of shape here.
Yeah. All right, so then I talk about the academic aspect. For most of my childhood, I did not get good grades at all. I was rather slow throughout most of my academic life when it came to learning things. I would be really, I just didn't want to do any work after school. I didn't want to do any homework. I just wanted to, play games or do whatever I wanted to do. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. But like, and I'm gonna mention debate again here. After I did debate, my grades like freaking shot up, because suddenly I'm like it gave me a lot more of an academic interest on various subjects, and that made it a lot easier to study content and material. It greatly improved my reading comprehension and my ability to canvas just words on a page. You know what I mean? So that made me a lot better at school, I think.
I have a question for you, Ben. What was it about debate that really like got your juices flowing? Like you're like, I want to do this. Like I want to become Kensei at this. Maybe you can include this as a beat. I don't know. I was just curious at this point.
Oh yeah, that's good. I just I would often spend time when I was browsing the internet in my childhood, early teenage years. I would just have I spent a lot of time like browsing forums and stuff, and forums are just like filled with people who have like opinions on various subjects. and I always had an opinion, and I would always like, I spent a lot of time like talking to myself, and a lot of times I would just like argue with like the forum posts and the words I was seeing, like even not directly to them. I often wouldn't even type anything to them,
What you mean?
but I would still argue with them. I would still have an opinion. I would still express it, and I felt like, yeah, debate was a good like outlet for me in that regard. It allowed me to just voice myself or voice my opinions on things more easily. So it gave me a good just vocal outlet for my opinions on various topics.
I think that's kind of the source for probably most Naiji as they get their voice. It come out different ways, because mine was sort of similar, but I was good at debating in general in life, but that wasn't the one I got first, although I did like it eventually. The first one I got was preaching. I would basically read comics or mythologies or whatever, and I didn't realize this at the time, but what was happening was there's these teaching stories embedded in it that the author is writing. Just like when you read various journalistic pieces, they're slanted, right? They have biases. Like these various mythologies, they'd have like misogyny in them. And I'd read this mythology, misogyny, and the next you're like, what, WTF? And I would basically preach about, that's not how the story should go. That's not how morality is. If that actually magic duck did that shit to me, here's what would happen. You just go on and on and on. Let me tell you how you use magic ducks to make people better people. That's not how you do it. You may do that shit in Norway, but here in Coach's Land, we do it like this. And again, I'm talking to no one, just a wall. But
yeah,
right? Is that what happened? You kind of like.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. What's interesting about debate too is that it was a little bit more like, the arguing was very like detailed and specific. Like it's because debate. We would choose a side, like, or choose what we're going to argue before the round, and we would do it like strategically. Like if the other team was, they were on the affirmative and they were saying that they wanted there to be solar-powered satellites, we would present a case against that. We would present our case strategically. What would be a good response or counter, to that case that they brought up. So like on the high level, I wasn't like. I wasn't voicing like personal high level opinions as much, but I was still giving my opinions on various things that were being said during the round. I thought that was, that point you said doesn't make any sense. It's completely wrong for this, and this reason. So it's interesting. But yeah, I think it was a little bit more like, a little more detailed just due to the nature of the activity itself. But it definitely, I feel like, got a lot of the same juices flowing from my Nye being voiced.
Yeah, I think the kind of thing that initially sets it off strong, will kind of affect the flavor. But I think the one thing that's the same is basically being presented with some kind of opinion, and then you just react. And when you do as an IG, man, you're like, how can you say that? ... And you start like connecting these dots and saying like, don't you see? Don't you see?
Don't you see what I'm saying here? Doesn't this make sense?
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, a little more time here. What's the next beat?
All right. So here I get into gaming, and I talk about various kinds of games and different kinds of experiences. So the first beat I have for gaming is I talk about role-playing games that I played, and the two that stand out to me. This is just going to get into just descriptive stuff. There's one game I talked about, RuneScape already, so that's there. But then there's also another game called Paper Mario, in like the 1,000-Year Door, and I actually played that game before RuneScape. That may have been like the first RPG game I got into. And it was just this like, you've played like Mario games before. They have like, just kind of silly characters, and but it had like this epic story to it as well. And you had like a party you had like a bunch of partners and stuff, and they all had like levels and health and stats. And then you would collect badges, right? That would that give you different bonuses and abilities and so forth. And also just this really, really sort of epic, but also like kind of cute and fun story. what that did for me is it was the first role playing game I really played, and it really immersed me in just a different world, and the concept of leveling up, like having something that you're sort of committed to growing and imaginatively.
I feel you, brother. When I actually found role playing like that, you could break life down like that into levels and stats and getting better as a hero. I'm like, oh, this sounds like what?
Yeah.
There's also enjoyment. That
I never looked at the world the same way after role playing games.
Yeah.
You're saying?
I was just saying, it's also really enjoying. There's a lot of enjoyment that you get from learning the game and how it works and becoming really good at it. Personally, that's like the bee's knees for me. But yeah, anyways.
No, because that's one aspect of it, but it definitely it's still part of the enjoyment, which is figuring out the rules. I think you're kind of saying the same thing. Like when figuring out the rules, that is the juice. But I think we're also talking about how that juice, once we tasted it, we were never the same afterwards, which is taking a world and then breaking down the rules for that world and how you run around that world and open it up and get the levels and do the right thing so the good creatures go, good job. A quest, basically like looking at life as like an adventure quest with like game rules.
Yeah.
I look after role-playing games, I looked at everything in life as basically some kind of role-playing game. You just had to figure out what are the rules for it.
Exactly. You learned lessons that stuck with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That's powerful. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, and I feel like I feel like those games in general, they just because you don't really. Like when you play them, you don't really know why you're playing them exactly. At least sometimes you do, but at first, you sort of just know like, this is like really awesome, and I'm like addicted to it. But then I later find out that there's a lot of like actual implications for what these things do to you. They give you a sense of what is it like to be a hero and live out your peak pathway and go on adventures, right? And I think that had a positive impact on me, as I got into Pod Lair, having that experience playing these games, it better prepare me to just understand like what this was all about, like what this was trying to do and the connection that it had to nature. And also helped me understand, because we use role-playing terminology all the time. So it gave me a kind of a direct connection to what we do here and why it's important.
Nice.
So nice. And then
before we move on, you dropped a lot there. Do you want to grab any of that before you move to the next beat?
Oh yeah, I guess maybe I should write a couple things down. Nice. And then for number 10, I played a lot of games with a lot of like randomly generated elements to them. So role-playing games do have this, they technically are included, but there's some that get like even more like into random generation. I'm not sure if you've heard of games like Minecraft or Terraria or I'm playing a game.
I've heard of them, but not gotten into them.
Yeah, I've played games like Hearthstone, which is it's a card game, and it has like an especially large amount of RNG. And like it's a digital card game, so it's that technically means that like drawing cards is like all randomized and so forth. And
what does RNG mean exactly?
Oh. It means random number generator. So in gaming, you can kind of see how like a random number generator would be applied. Like if you kill a monster and you get a certain item, and it's like a random chance it'll happen. That's that's RNG.
Yeah.
So
if you wander in the woods, there's like a certain chance you'll get monsters and they'll be random. Another place it's like random of a different sort. Is that?
Yeah, exactly. And I've always kind of been inspired by that because it makes the experience a lot more immersive. And I think that helps add to a lot of the immersion that I had when I was getting into gaming. And it's something that's always inspired me and has implications on what I'm doing with the Sample Surfer in programming right now. I made a lot of the inspiration or motivation I had for the Sample Surfer was the fact that you could generate collages that would be, there's a lot of stuff that's inspiring and moving, but one of the things is you could generate collages that aren't like the same every time you do them, that actually could be randomly generated, and that would create a new experience each time you did it, and there'd be like an infinite amount of different experiences you'd have because you could like shuffle them and move pieces around and stuff. So it kind of teaches you that life isn't always like this routine quest. There's always variables that are going to be different at different times you experience them. So I found that really moving and inspiring, and something that has given me motivation with the Sample Surfer, and as well as any future projects where I might use random generation in the future.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, so you see it a lot there, but it sounds like that one of the kind of key takeaways was that the random generation was inspiring, motivating, and mind expanding, and
yes,
pleasurable. Gotcha,
yep.
Gotcha.
It made me feel like more, like when we do the collaging, you can do it alphabetically or you can do it randomized. The difference is that if you do it alphabetically, you can sort of predict which sample is going to come next, and then given that predictability, it kind of makes the game a little bit more stale.
Right.
Having the randomization makes it so that any sample can pop up at any time, any card can be drawn at any time, and so that makes it so that you don't know what you're going to get, and that creates an excitability to it, and also it requires a greater degree of being well versed in the actual game itself in order to be really good at it, and so it helps to make you even that much more masterful. So I think that's also one of the benefits.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's really cool. I just another thing, like with the Sample Surfer, like when the random generation, it's like totally random, like what sample you'll get. But there's also like more, like in gaming, you see this a lot. There's like really, you can oftentimes use the random generation like really intelligently. Like you'll have certain things that are like you're kind of like establishing like this game has like a way to it. It's not like totally random, but you have certain things that are random, sort of that make the experience unique, but certain things that stay the same. So you have this game have a kind of experience to it that you want to give.
So it gives you both a sense of logic and a sense of surprise.
Yeah.
There's constants and randoms. Yeah.
I'll say one thing before we kind of call today. Also, not that you have to put this in there anyway. I was saying just for us as friends, it also sounds like perhaps maybe your other like that, because I know Nexi, her name, Nexi, one of the elements it came from is that she's the next shiny thing that's going to happen, but I don't know what it is. And so I would say Stimulus Register in general, but especially the knee, because it's the intangibles, is it has like randomness. The juggling it does, so where there's kind of like a ability to do that. And my other definitely likes surprise packages, surprise things like that. Those are things that tend to cause delight, and I feel that she enjoys them. So I'm not saying it is, but that could be something.
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure. That definitely my other has a strong role in that. There's no question.
Nice. All right, what's a good place to pause? We did some really good work here today. So Ben, I'd like you to tease out what you're doing to 36. We will then continue what we did here. We'll just pick up here next time. See, as we get going here, we start getting into it now. What comes next kind of like starts to almost develop its own way. So right now we're making good headway here. We will tease this out and we'll continue. Glenn, you'll get a template from him. You'll start working it up yourself, and then you'll do the same thing after him. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds fine.
Boom. And if you have something next time, Glenn, we'll let you go first, and I can build you up some before switching over to back to Ben.
Or Mitchell. There.
Or Mitchell, exactly. So we'll keep going in and out. But this is good. All right. I will see you guys on Sunday, and we will continue with the Knee Alpha ladies.
Awesome.
All right.
All right. Have a great night. That's
Good night.
Good night.